Waiswana to take us through today's presentation, I wanted to give you just a brief overview of how the action agenda was developed. Many of you were involved in inputting to the consultations, and we're very grateful for the strong civil society stakeholder voice in developing the agenda and its 8 key action areas. As you may know, the United Nations Modalities Resolution, so that's the resolution that sets out how these high-level meetings will operate, names the UHC 2030 partnership as the technical lead for ensuring multi-stakeholder coordination, for helping to ensure that the voices not only of member state governments, but of all other stakeholders are included in the high-level meeting process. In order to do that, starting last summer, UHC 2030 put together a task force to support preparation of the high-level meeting and to lead development of the action agenda that we'll be sharing with you today. This UHC action agenda was initially developed by the UHC 2030 High-Level Task Force on UHC, which is made up of 20 different representatives of all of the different UHC constituencies and groups committed to accelerating progress, delivering health for all. Its inclusive composition mirrors the stakeholders listed in the modalities resolution for the UN high-level meeting. Then the action agenda was further informed by an online consultation in English and French that took place in January and February. We were so pleased to have over 830 responses from a wide range of stakeholders, representing civil society, community groups, academic organizations, governments, private sector, and multilateral agencies. Those responses came from over 100 countries in the African, Asian, European, North American, and South American regions. All of that contributed to this action agenda. You can go to the next 2 slides, please. So I've just given a quick overline. There we go. All of that contributed to this action agenda, which builds on the 2019 political declaration on UHC, as well as research and data from the most recent State of UHC Commitment Review report. The agenda, as you'll see in Waiswa's presentation, includes action-oriented policy recommendations that we can all use, as well as concrete milestones for achieving universal health coverage. This action agenda will be presented directly to the President of the UN General Assembly, who is coordinating all 3 of the high-level meetings, and it will help to inform the draft of the 2023 UHC political declaration. This action agenda also aims to inform other processes that you see here on the screen, which are relevant to achieving health for all, pandemic preparedness, and the TB high-level meetings, the upcoming Sustainable Development Goals Summit, the G7, G20, the INB, and other work around pandemic preparedness. One final note on why we have this sort of set of overarching asks and priority agenda areas. Those of us who were active in the 2019 high-level meeting process, so 2019 was the first time we had a UN high-level meeting on universal health coverage, we found that having a set of key asks and priority areas for UHC advocates to rally around was very helpful. It allowed us to coordinate our sort of overarching asks and demands, even as each of our organizations may have been advocating for the specific health areas that we champion. And it was also useful to have a high-level summary to encourage member states to ensure that these key areas were addressed in the political declaration. And indeed, we did see great uptake of the asks, the kind of combined asks from 2019, a real strong reflection of that in the 2019 political declaration. And so we hope that these demands from the 2023 action agenda from the UHC movement will also have a similar impact through advocacy led by all of you and many of our other members and partners as we look to shape the commitments that member states will be making at the high-level meeting on UHC in 2023 and also at the related high-level meetings on tuberculosis and on pandemic preparedness, prevention, and response, since universal health coverage is key to achieving progress in all of these health areas. Now I'll hand it over to Waiswa. Many of you know Waiswa Nakwanga, our CSEM coordinator, to tell you a bit more about the action agenda and the advocacy opportunities related to the HLM. Thanks to all of you who are introducing yourself in the chat. Please feel free to continue to do that and to drop your questions in the chat. We'll be collecting them during Waiswa's presentation. Thanks so much, and Waiswa, over to you.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. I see some familiar faces here. Thanks for your support. For today's meeting, I want to continue to share with you what has been developed to support the process for the UN high-level meeting, preparation for the UN high-level meeting on UHC that will take place on September 21st. But there are 3 HLMs, and so this is not only preparation for the high-level meeting on UHC, but for all high-level meetings on health, including the high-level meeting on TB and also the high-level meeting on PPPR. We are working with some of the other actors in those HLMs, and here we'll not share more information about that, but if you do have a question, you can always reach out to us. I want to start off by building on the background that Amy laid out clearly on how the action agenda came to be. One of the main questions that we get is this question about why now, why a second our high-level meeting on UHC. And actually, in 2019, in the political declaration on UHC, world leaders agreed to have a second high-level meeting on UHC in 2023 to take a comprehensive review on our progress toward implementing some of the commitments they made in 2019. And it was, by accident also happened to be that between then and now, we had COVID, which has even made it more urgent that world leaders come together to develop a plan for going forward in to make sure that people have access to everybody has access to the health services they need. So that's where we are. We know, for example, that we are behind on, we are not on track on achieve the set targets and goals by 2030. We still have more than half of the world's population lacking access to essential services. We're seeing more and more people suffering catastrophic cost to access health services. We are seeing more vulnerable populations being left behind. And so the time is really now that we are bring together all stakeholders, not just heads of states because they can't do it alone, but also civil society to try to develop a plan together of how we deliver for the people around the world. Next slide, please. So this is a really unique opportunity, for everybody. These 3 HLMs on health. I think this is the first time that has happened. And what it really means is it gives us an opportunity to have even a broader picture and conversation about what needs to happen going forward. And we are seeing that, there's a need based on the experience in COVID, a need for us to look at how health systems are working or not working for the people. And so the timing of this is really, I won't say ideal because, it's definitely coming after a very major crisis, but we need to come together to develop a plan going forward. And so we want world leaders, heads of states, ministers of health, and others to come to New York this year. Not necessarily to make new commitments, but to strengthen the commitments that they made in 2019, to make sure that they are going to take real specific actions, concrete actions to deliver on the 2019 declaration. I want to note that this is not going to be a new political declaration in UHC. Both the TB high-level meeting and the in 2018 and the UHC high-level meeting in 2019, they both produced very strong political declarations. So this is not going to be like rewriting or starting from scratch. We're building on those commitments that's still relevant. And we just need to look at the areas that need to be strengthened further and get more specific and concrete actions going forward. Next slide, please. So another question I get from advocates is, what does this mean for me? You know, I am in Zimbabwe, I am in Bangladesh, I am in Peru. What does this mean for me? Really, the HLM or the high-level meetings on all of them are really an opportunity for us as advocates, civil-side advocates, but also other stakeholders to make our voices heard, you know, to go back to our governments after 4 years or 3 years for longer for tuberculosis and say, wait, you know, this is what we have seen, this is what we are seeing, this is what data is showing, and we need you to respond to this and influence the approach to UHC. It is, and also other health issues, not just UHC. And then also make sure that, you know, you ask them to show up. I mean, it is important to show up. It's important that we have the highest representation from all the countries in the world showing up in New York on September 20th, 21st, and 22nd to participate in all three high-level meetings. And we want, you know, you to advocate and make sure that they act, when they come to New York, that they don't do business as usual, but that they go that extra step to make sure that the commitments they make are ambitious, they're bold, that they are really action-oriented, that they prepare us to respond to crisis, that they prepare us to deliver on the commitments we made in 2019, that they prepare us to have a health world that we want to see for everybody. And so this is the opportunity for you and me, for all of us, to go back to our governments and make that clear to them. And it is also an opportunity for us, as we are having conversations with them, to say, oh, wait a minute, you know, you haven't delivered on ABC XYZ. And hold them accountable. It's not just about what is going to come up next, but what also has been or hasn't been done before, where it makes sense, where progress has been made. Make sure that you show them that we appreciate the progress they are making, the effort they're making at the country level, and let them know that, you know, it's something that we as advocates are really paying attention to and that appreciate. Next slide, please. So the action agenda, which our Amy gave really great background about and how it came to be developed, has 8 action areas we identified. These 8 action areas, some of you who were here in 2019, who were part of this process in 2019, might look familiar, and later on I will explain some of what has changed. But you know what you see here, things that we really think are necessary, and we've gone further to flash them out to make sure that they have specific actions and milestones for leaders to take, and also for us to track progress on implementation. So if you look, for example, at the first action area on championing political leadership for UHC, we all know the importance of this. We have seen through COVID how important it is to have leadership that steps up, that takes that extra effort to reach the vulnerable, to reach the marginalized. We have seen that. And so this is very important. And what we want to see in September is for governments to commit to providing strategic leadership at the highest levels, not leaving this to community health care workers to do all the work, but for them to champion universal health coverage as a national political priority and through a whole of government approach. That's what we want to see. And if you take a chance, you get a chance to look at the action agenda, you will see this laid out with more concrete actions that can be taken. And then if you look at action area 2 on leave no one behind, once again, the experience of COVID has exposed the weaknesses in our health systems with a lot of vulnerable populations being left behind and not having access to the health services they need. We have seen it all. And so, this is a very important area. None of this area, everything here is important. I want to say that this is very important, and we want to make sure that all national health policy frameworks address the needs of the vulnerable and disadvantaged groups throughout their life course, and making sure they remove barriers to access for certain groups, as we have seen some situations, that there is local health policy framework that really allows for all groups, all people to access the services they need. And then on action 3, on adopting enabling laws, really we can't have UHC without that enabling environment for people to use health technologies they need, the innovations they need to be able to deliver the health services needed to people. And so this is another area that the task force that put this together really are emphasized in this iteration of our key asks. And then strengthening the health and care workforce. As you talk about later, this is another area that we have seen during COVID. It was there before, but we've seen in COVID that it needed to be even strengthened further, and so we included it. And of course, the investment is very important in delivering health and achieving the 2030 agenda. And so we're asking governments to commit to spending. This obviously varies from country to country, but at least 5% of their GDP on health. Some countries will need to spend more, others will need to spend less, but that was like a number we thought we needed to include so that we can hold leaders accountable to something, to a figure. And then on moving together towards UHC, this is the one that is tends to be less clear for people, but it is really about the fact that governments can't do this alone. We as advocates can't do this alone. And so we need all stakeholders, civil society, communities, private sector, and others to join hands, to work with decision makers to make sure that we are part of all of every step in the process of UHC, from making decisions to implementing, designing programs, implementing them, monitoring them, and evaluating them. That's something that this our action area speaks to, but also speaks to need for accountability. That part of the multi-stakeholder engagement and working together also has been requires that we are holding each other accountable. And so this action agenda speaks to that piece of what we want to see leaders commit to in New York. On the seventh area on guaranteeing gender equality in health, I will talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But again, this is another obvious area where we cannot ignore gender equality in health anymore. And so the task force really thought that we needed to not only include it, but strengthen it even further. And then there is this piece on universal health coverage and health security, which has been a little bit misunderstood. Some people saying, wait a minute, are you trying to shift the focus to health security? But really, it's not about us shifting focus, but more so about us responding to the times as they are, making sure that the decisions that are being made around pandemic preparedness and response, that they do prioritize UHC, that UHC is not something that is on the side, but it's at the center. It shapes what they do. All the investments are going to go in those initiatives that you have heard about. We want to make sure that they strengthen health systems for UHC based on a healthcare approach. So we thought that it needed to definitely be elevated in this in the action agenda. Next slide, please. And so, the question really is what has changed between 2019 key asks and what we have now. And just to reiterate some of the things I just said, this action agenda is, unlike the 2019, in this action agenda and this HLM, we want to see leaders kind of like take concrete actions. So the action agenda is built to make sure that there are specific actions the governments can take, and that the milestones for us to look at to measure, to track progress in delivery. And then it also, this action agenda makes sure that we include all the groups that are marginalized, that are left out. Usually, we try to make sure they are reflected in this action agenda. We also kind of like, as I mentioned earlier, elevated the language on health and healthcare workers. We know that we can't have a health society, a health community. We can't have a health economy without a strong, well-trained, well-compensated healthcare workforce. And so that has been elevated and made stronger than previously. And then, we also know that, we can't have universal health coverage and leave no one behind if women and other groups are being left behind, including in the leadership, like highest positions in leadership positions in health, making sure that they are part of the people that are making decisions on what needs to be done in the healthcare. And so we have elevated that and strengthened the language around that. And this connection, once again, around UHC and health security, we see these as interconnected. And we believe that to achieve them, we will need to use the same health systems. And so we thought that it's important that we strengthen that area as well. So those are kind of like the main features. There's some others that you will see that have been strengthened a little bit, but very much aligns with what we had in the previous key asks for the HLM. Next slide. So, there are, next slide, please. So how can you use this action agenda? So we launched it late last month on the 27th. It's available on the UHC 2030 website in French and Spanish. We have also shared it in different forms, social media, and in the emails that we share with you all. And so you probably have seen it already. But we also have additional languages for the short version that we have developed. There's about 4 pages in Spanish, in Arabic, in Chinese, in Russian, in addition to French and English. And we also have developed a social media toolkit that you could use to help with the dissemination. And again, feel free to play with the messaging there in a way that aligns with the specific issues you're working on or the context that you're working in. So these are some of the things that you steps you can take, but there's more. Next slide. Okay, yeah. So we want everybody, all advocates, to take this tool, this action agenda, and own it. It's your document, it's your asks, it's for everybody. Take it, disseminate it, promote it as you see it makes sense. Use it and align it with some of the asks you might have developed for maybe disease-specific asks or other health areas, maybe for the country-specific asks that you have. This action agenda has been developed to make sure that you can apply, you can adapt it to your issue area or to your context. So it's not prescriptive at all. Feel free to use it in a way that you think makes sense for your context. And also, as negotiations start soon on the zero draft and the political declarations for the 3 HLMs, making sure that you use as a resource to guide how you engage in those negotiations, what you think is important. Feel free to do that, and also in other spaces and other processes that many of you are part of. The G7, the G20, the INB, the Pandemic Accord, and other regional, even country level moments that you might be engaged in. Please feel free to use the action agenda as you see it makes sense. Next slide. Next. Yeah. So in terms of the immediate opportunity for us to use it, it's going to be at the multi-stakeholder hearings that are happening for all 3 HLMs, UHC, TB, and PPR, on May 8th through the 9th. As you can see on this screen, this is sort of like the plan for the multi-stakeholder hearings. You have TB afternoon, you have the hearing on TB on the afternoon of May 8th, and then the hearings on PPPR and UHC on the 9th, with PPPR in the morning, afternoon hours, and then UHC hearing later in the day on the 9th. And once that's done, we will have the President of the General Assembly will develop a report, and that will be circulated with all stakeholders. And then that document will be one of the key pieces that will go into informing the zero draft when they start working on it. And again, this is why we have the action agenda, because it allows us and the President of the General Assembly to look at this document as well as the report that will be developed from the hearings to inform the whole process of developing the zero draft. So this is a key moment, and I hope that some of you will be in New York for it. You can I don't know, somebody can share the link here to the provisional program for the hearings. But I want to make it clear that everybody knows that this is an in-person participation only event, and so you won't have the ability to join in a different way. It will be live streamed. That's the only option you have if you're not going to be in New York to see what's going on in the hearings. And in terms of other moments are coming up after the hearings, we have the in April and May, we have the World Health Assembly that's also coming up from the 21st to the 30th of May. Another moment for us to connect with advocates, with other stakeholders, with some of the decision makers that will be in Geneva, and make sure that we share the action agenda with them. Make sure that you bring your, if you're going to be there in person, make sure you bring your issue-specific asks as well, and that you've aligned them very well. Those 5 minutes or 2 minutes you have with them, make sure that they understand what you want to see, and then the other moments that will happen after that. No, next slide. Sorry. Yeah. So then we have the G7 in May. Also, I know that there are many of the people here that I've seen in some of the engagement groups on the C7, in the C7 and G7 in general, making sure that you continue to circulate and share, use this opportunity to share the action agenda and your specific asks for the country or for the region, whatever makes sense. And then other moments that are coming up until the high-level meeting in September. Next slide. I want to now call on Laura to quickly walk us through some of the resources we have that you can use. Please, Laura, step in.
Thank you, Isa. I hope you can all hear me well. So I'm the newly arrived Advocacy and Communication Officer at the CZM with WorkHealth, and I'm very happy to seeing you online today. So as Waisa and Amy already said, there are many ways to engage, advocate, and participate in the run-up of the September 2023 UN high-level meeting on UHC. So first here, you can see a message sheet. You can download it. It's a 2-page only document which provides messaging for advocates, campaigners, and other stakeholders working on UHC. You will have answered to questions like, what is UHC? Who is responsible for delivering it? And what is the relationship between, UHC and health security? You will find very short and precise answer to that kind of question. And then the aim is that to allow you to adapt it to any context and advocate for health for all broadly. Then the second one is an advocacy letter to call on leaders to commit to the highest political level participation in the upcoming UN high-level meeting and to take action. So we have created for you this letter to reach out to policymakers, from members of parliaments to your head of state, governments, minister, international representative in the health sector and beyond. So it's designed to be quick and easy to use, so you can really customize it as you wish. And then finally, my favorite part is about the social media toolkits. So you will find, and don't worry, I will provide you with all the link in the chat, a social media toolkit with prepared text to promote health for all and the action agenda and how to engage before the UN high-level meeting. And you will also find some images. And if you want to see finally some example, please follow the UHC 2030 Twitter accounts and the CZM Twitter account for more info. And remember, everyone, everywhere can concretely engage to advocate for health for all in the lead-up of the high-level meeting. Thank you. And yeah, I think it's now over to you, Amy. Thank you.
Thanks, Waiswa, for that great overview. And thanks, Laura, for the tour of the various communications tools. Really exciting to see building the sort of drumbeat around these asks in the lead up to the high-level meeting. So now we have about 15 minutes for questions and answers. I see that some of you have already begun to include questions in the chat, so I will make a start of answering some of them, and then I'll share the floor with Waiswa. Please continue to drop your questions into the chat if there are others. So first I saw there was a question. This is a popular one and a question that we also share and don't 100% have the answer to, around the floor statements during the interactive multi-stakeholder hearing. The concept note, so the question is, when you registered, there was a place in the registration form to indicate that you were interested in making a statement. You may have included some text in there. That was actually a little different than the way the registration happened last time. The concept note for the multi-stakeholder hearing from the President of the General Assembly indicates, and I quote, "No pre-established list of speakers will be prepared, and participants will be invited to indicate their interest to intervene during the panels." So indeed, at the multi-stakeholder hearing in 2019, there was not an opportunity to as I recall, to submit your statements in advance. They were collecting names on the floor during the hearing. There's not any other information in the concept paper at this time about how that will be managed, but it's usually the Secretariat staff for the President of the General Assembly. We have not been we've asked, and we don't have a clear answer as to how those statements or that information you may have submitted in your registration will be compiled or used. What we do know is that in 2019, UHC 2030 offered everyone an opportunity to share their statements online. So whether you were able to read them from the floor during the hearing or not, they were available and searchable. In fact, the ones from 2019 are still there if you Google it on the UHC 2030 website, and they will be doing that again this year. There should be a newsletter coming out shortly that includes a link for how you could post your statement publicly there on the UHC 2030 website. If we receive additional information about what the process will be on the floor in the actual hall of the General Assembly during the hearing, we'll certainly share that with all of you in our newsletter or other news flashes. But for now, the concept paper indicates that that list of speakers will not be pre-established. So it seems that they will use the same methodology as last time. I know for other meetings, there have sometimes been requests that you email it to a UN address, etc. Again, we have not yet received that guidance, so stay tuned. There was also another question. I'm going to let Waiswa talk about the side events and about the accountability question, but I saw there was another question about another good question about any intel on where the PPPR, sorry, the Pandemic Prevention, Preparedness and Response high-level meeting political declaration may be sourcing its language from, because there's no existing agreed text. So I know that all of you may not always engage in UN processes, but it's very common when member states are negotiating an agreement for them to look back to previous agreements and to begin a draft based on language that has already been agreed to and voted on by other member states. So of course, in the UHC and the tuberculosis process, we have the previous political declarations, and they will probably serve as the basis for the new declaration that will begin to be negotiated for this year. This is the first time we've had a high-level meeting on pandemic preparedness, prevention, and response. So there is no existing agreed language. I don't have a lot of intel on how the language for that document is being sourced. I have participated, a number of us as representatives of the CSEM have participated in some of the meetings of the group of friends of UHC. They are a number of member states who are very supportive of the universal health coverage agenda, and had an opportunity to engage with the co-facilitators from Israel and Morocco who are leading the PPPR process. If you take a look at their modalities resolution, the resolution that tells us how that hearing is going to go, it refers to about 6 different documents from the World Health Assembly, but the language agreed in Geneva is different than the language agreed in New York. So, you know, I'm not sure. What I heard from the co-facilitator from Israel was that even to get that modalities declaration agreed was a bit of a challenge. Lots of discussions on the international health regulations, certainly looking at some existing language around the importance of strong health systems that exist, trying to figure out how to address those IHR issues. So I don't, you know, I don't know what they're using core as the basis, where they're pulling all of the language from, but I know that they're having a challenge. The calendar for the negotiations of all 3 of these high-level meeting political declarations is available online, and the TB one will go first with a TB 0 draft, so hopefully shared with member states on May 12th. I think that reflects the fact both that we have existing TB agreements and that TB, I think, is not prominently on the agenda at the World Health Assembly. The UHC 0 draft negotiation will go next, with the presentation of the 0 draft expected on May 24th. And the PPPR 0 draft is not expected until June 7th. So I'm saying that just to note that I think the order of those in which they're being released and in which the negotiations will begin reflects some of the challenges for the PPPR team in making sure that they get language together that may be a good starting point. So I hope that's helpful. I'm not deeply engaged in the PPPR negotiation process. Weiswa, there's a question about side events, both during the multi-stakeholder hearing itself and at the World Health Assembly and during the UN General Assembly. I think some of those will be highlighted in the CSEM news flash that we're getting ready to send out so that you all have links in one place. Some of the side events are only for member states, but I will toss it over to you, Weiswa, in case you want to talk about some of what's being planned.
Yeah, so there are different groups that are planning side events. I think NC the Alliance is planning something. I just saw it posted in the chat here, but there will be side events that are being planned by different organizations, different groups. For the CSM, we are working on a couple other side events that I don't have the details right now to share, but that we will share through the listserv with everybody in the lead up to the hearings. This is, for now, I'm talking about the hearings. And then usually UNF, the UN Foundation, they put together a whole comprehensive list. And once that is together, we'll also make sure we share that with you so you know what is being planned where, when, and plan your participation accordingly. On WHA, again, lots of side events that are being right now developed. The process is happening right now, and I don't have a compilation of all of them, but we do plan to share a list probably early next month via our listserv, and so stay tuned on that. On HLM itself, obviously that's still a few months away, so we don't yet have plans yet, but we will share the information as well when those plans are being developed, when they're developed. So stay tuned. We will be sharing this information with you. There was a question about financing to participate in the hearings. We actually don't necessarily have resources right now to support people to attend the hearings. I do know that maybe some of the other HLMs like TB, HLM, they had a little bit of funding for communities and suicide advocates. So you can look there and see if it is an opportunity for you to get some support there. We are happy to support in either way. I know that when you register, you get a sort of like a letter or approval confirmation from the President of the General Assembly. And so that is proof. If you need a visa letter or anything like that, that's enough proof for you to show at the embassy to get a visa. So that's where that stands at the moment.
So maybe I can answer some of the questions about who usually participates in these things. I see a few chats. Usually, yes, because it's a limited period of time in New York, you would normally have the mission representatives of member states attending. Some of those representatives, sometimes at the highest level. We have had ambassadors who join us for these multi-stakeholder hearings, including those that are the co-facilitators of the process. Certainly there's a lot of commitment there from the group of friends of UHC. Often missions will send the representatives who will actually be a part of the negotiations so that they can hear from all of you what the key issues are that we would like to see included in the political declaration. And yes, the other different kinds of stakeholders who have registered and been accepted to participate will be in the room. Generally, those heads of state and national government representatives, yes, you're correct, would be present for the UN General Assembly. They're not discouraged, I think, from coming and attending the multi-stakeholder hearing, but in my experience from previous hearings, it was mostly the mission representatives. So before we run out of time, there was a question about how accountability is addressed in the action agenda. I know accountability is a challenging, something that we are deeply committed to as advocates, promoting, and that we ask for and demand, and that is challenging to work into official UN documents, as governments are often hesitant to make commitments. But I don't know if you can talk about how that was a part of the discussions.
Yeah, so if you look at the action agenda, the action areas, it's not obvious if accountability is included, but it's included under the action area number 6, and that move together is about accountability, not only multi-stakeholder kind of like partnership, but also accountability, holding governments accountable to their commitments. If you get a chance, if you have a chance, take a look at the action agenda, or let me see if I can share it here, and you will see more clearly how we have laid out accountability under action area number 6. I just shared the link.
Yep, thanks for sharing that, Waiswa. So as Laura promised, we've been collecting your events that are being posted here in the chat. Thank you. We will be sharing and continue to share both on our website and through our news flash the links to many of these resources, social media toolkits, as well as updates. I do encourage you, there is a link in the chat for you to be able to participate in the final briefing being hosted by UHC 2030 on April 24th on the multi-stakeholder hearing final preparation. We are hoping that by then we'll probably have a little more clarity on some of these questions, such as participation from the floor, the speakers list, and things like that. So those processes are moving. Encourage you to, the link is there in the chat, also on the UHC 2030 website. And in our newsletter, Laura's just posted it again if you want to go ahead and register for that. We've come to the top of the hour. Thank you so much for joining us from wherever you are in the world today. Great to see the diversity of civil society participants. I want to thank the whole team behind the scenes who makes these webinars possible. Waiswa and Laura, Sam and David and others in the Secretariat. And a special thanks to our interpreters, because it's a lot of work to keep up with these very technical UN terms, but we're committed to making these webinars as accessible to as many of you as possible. So thanks to all of you for your help. Thanks for your good questions. We look forward to connecting with you on that April 24th webinar and to seeing many of you here in New York. If you're not able to travel, don't worry. We'll be providing all-day regular updates on social media, as well as a readout of the hearing and next steps on the road to the actual high-level meeting after it ends. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.